Oh, I can hear you now.
Hi,
Hi. Hello. Hi. This is so
how
cool.
are you? This is so
I'm
exciting.
pretty well. Me too.
I'm so excited you're on I'm getting a
I'm
chance
thrilled to
to talk to
be
you.
here. I'm
Yeah.
thrilled to be here. This is so cool.
But should I start with the questions? What do you think? Should we
Should we
get,
just crack on? Yeah, let's do
yeah?
it.
So, the thing on this that I wanted to, first of all, let me start with saying that, Sophie, I'm so excited to have you on the book club and this conversation because somebody who writes the amount you've written is your 30th or your 31st book.
Do you know, I've actually lost count. Thank you so much for having me on this amazing opportunity. It's so nice to be chatting. This is really, really special. And you are very kind to refer to my output. I sometimes look at my books and a bit like you look at your children and think, wow, really? Did I do that? I look at this volume of books and I think, how did that happen? I have no idea. But it's what I love to do. You know, I think that's what keeps me going.
But, but that's amazing because that's a lot of work that's gone into it. So I would say that you must be writing all the time, that means.
Do you know, I'm writing a lot of the time, and when I'm not writing, I'm thinking about new books. And I keep telling myself to have some time off and have a break because it has been quite a frenetic, last couple of decades,
Yeah.
shall we say.
Yeah.
And I do sometimes think, oh, I need to have a breather. And I schedule time and I say, right, this is my time off. And then I start thinking of a new idea while I'm kind of, having a massage. So
But
it's a
that's
sort of
the typical example
passion.
saying, when you love your job, it doesn't feel like a job. And you're the living example of that because the moment you take time off, you're doing what is like a hobby for you, and here comes a new idea, and then there's a book out again, kind of his own. But that's outstanding.
Well,
Have
I
you
feel very lucky that I can do the thing that I love. And I won't say there aren't stressful times. I mean, for me, the beginning of a book is this exhilarating time of new ideas and new characters and ideas and themes and everything and comedy scenes that I'm dreaming up. And then you get to about halfway through the book and something goes wrong. You reach a wall, you find a plot hole that you hadn't predicted, and you suddenly think, why am I doing this? Why? I'm an idiot. Why am I writing another book? This is a nightmare. I hate writing. I should never have started. But luckily I kind of have the experience now to think, no, keep calm, it'll be fine. I will get to the end. And then it's always worth it, much like having a baby. It's really hard work.
I would say there are a lot of writers kind of in between books, or there's a certain period of time where they hit the writer's block, as they call it, and they kind of get stuck on things. You would say that you've not had it in between books. You have it when you start the book, and before you end it is somewhere where you kind of get stuck. Is it what you
There's
would call writer's block, or is it more like a
Do you know, I was taught a really valuable lesson really early in my career. I did an event with an older fantasy writer. He was very experienced, and we were both asked this question about writer's block. And he told me that, or he told the audience, in fact, that whatever we say out loud, our brain believes, even if we're not sure it's true. If you utter the words, a part of your brain will register those words, take them on and believe them. And so the words that I like to utter is, I never get writer's block. I say this out loud. And
amazing?
I hope it becomes self-fulfilling. So I never get writer's block,
Yeah.
but having said that, I will reach moments where the plot is not doing what I thought it would. This is not a great moment. And then I step away. I think you can't sit at a screen and tear your hair out and get stressed out and hope that you'll find the answer by looking at the computer. That doesn't work. I step away, I go for a walk, I try to find inspiration somewhere else. I talk it through with my husband, and just have patience. I think you have to be kind to yourself. You have to think, if the answer is there, it will come out and it will come to my brain. Maybe I just need a few nights sleep. Maybe I need to take a long bath. It's always when you least expect it that the answers come out. I think this is in life as well as in books. So don't kind of bash your head.
You're so right about that, because what you said just now, about not saying that because your brain will believe it. Because when I went through the journey that I went through with my illness, that was one thing that I followed, which was that, you know, I'm not going to kind of go on those pathways and form make those pathways strong in my brain, which talk about the pain and the why am I going through this, etc., etc. I'm going to be positive, which is the affirmations or whatever you would call it. And what you said about the writer's block was exactly that. And then the next thing that you said, that this is part of life. What you just said was so true about life and what we go through. And when you write, there's so much. I mean, you know, when we read your books, we laugh, we cry, they're lighthearted, there's so much happening with the characters. And the first thing that everybody refers to is what they call the chick lit, basically in that zone. But when I read them, and when I, like the new book that you're coming out with, the thank you for sending, I'm so happy. The first one to read it, that was excitement. But, you know, and more as I look back at it, there was a time when it was fun and, you know, with the girlfriends kind of reading. But when I read it, actually underlying, there's so many life lessons that you're giving in a very wonderful way, and which is very simple and casual, and yet they're very, very deep lessons. So obviously, they come from somewhere within you. So the question I want to ask you is that, where does it come from? Is this your upbringing? Is it the childhood? Is it the relationship you have with your husband? Is it the marriage? What is it that you feel gives you the depth? I know most people don't think that these kind of books have the depth, but I do feel there are so many wonderful lessons in these books also.
Oh my goodness. Well, I have to say, I am really overwhelmed by this reaction to my books, because as you say, often people take them at the face value and the surface and the laughter and the comedy, which is what I love to do. I love to entertain. But for you to kind of perceive these hidden layers, it makes my day, because for me, I think there's no point just laughing in a shallow way. I think the best comedy comes out of a place of truth. And I think that's where I try to start with, write the truth. And the truth is funny, but the truth is painful. And for me, the best comedy comes out of, if you like, the sadnesses of life, the pain, being uncomfortable, being embarrassed, not being sure about yourself. And so you laugh, but at the same time, you learn. And I suppose I just draw on my life experiences. I mean, I am a big believer in family. I, you know, grew up in a family where family values were important, trying to work at relationships. I think that has been a theme of my books. You know, we all love the romance, we love the sizzle, we love the kind of the magic and the infatuation, but then reality kicks in, which is very much the theme of this new book, Love Your Life. But, you know, I like to have both. I like to have the whirlwind romance, but then I like to have what happens next. And actually, a lot of books just stop at the final kiss and don't take us beyond. But I find it fascinating. I think I'm fascinated by human nature. I think that is what powers my books. I think humans are fascinating. We are so full of contradictions, and you know, those contradictions make me laugh.
Yeah, what you said is so true. Every relationship needs working. And it's not just about the relationship you have with your partner, your husband, or whatever. It's just, even if it is with your parents or your siblings, every relationship you need to nurture. It needs working on. And that's what I find beautiful, especially in Love Your Life also. When I read that, it was so, I'm not giving out anything when I say this, but I found it so amazing the way you have shown how you need to nurture relationships, and nothing is a given, and nothing is what was that word that her friend uses, Sarika uses, a deal breaker.
You deal breaker. Yes.
Break relationships, and that point was so important, and I think it's so applicable, and for me that stayed with me. And I suppose we all take away what we are going through at some point, and it just makes us look at things and realize that, yeah, it's always a work in progress. Every relationship is a work in progress. And we get back out of it as much as we put in. And that was my takeaway from this book, I felt. And I would say, other than that, there are immense amount of characters that you've created till now. The amount of books that you've written, there's so many characters that you've created. Are there any times that you get confused between the various characters? Do your characters somehow overlap each other sometimes? Is there a pattern that you find in your characters?
That is a really good question, because it's true. I think that my characters do slightly overlap, and probably the point at which they overlap is me, because I put myself into my characters. And what I don't do this kind of deliberately, but I love to write a flawed character. I don't want to start with a heroine who's completely perfect, has got it sussed, knows what life is all about, and just charges through getting everything right. No, I do the opposite. My characters get everything wrong. And thankfully, I have a lot of material to draw on in myself. I haven't run out of issues yet. And there is a bit of a trend in what I write. I'm quite obsessional. I can get sort of fixated on the wrong things. I have been known to be a workaholic, actually, which, you know, you'll probably guess from my output. And I like to shop, and I like to clear things up. I wrote a character called Fixie, who, if she sees something wrong, it bugs her. She can't rest until she's fixed it. And that's a bit me as well. And I am a bit of a hopeless romantic, like Ava in Love Your Life. I will even say that there's an exact aspect of Ava which comes directly from me, which is that she this is not giving away a plot point, but she loves to buy what she calls rescue books, which are old tatty books that she finds in junk shops with obscure titles, and she feels sorry for them. So she buys them, and I do that too.
You do?
I do. I do. I will be in an antique shop, and you know, you see all the beautiful antiques, and you think, well, you're okay. Someone's going to buy you, lovely pot. But what about you, health manual from 1967? No one's going to buy you. I did actually buy a health manual from the 60s about 2 weeks ago, because I just thought it was delightful. It had pictures, black and white pictures of women in 60s hairdos, sort of showing you what you should be eating or how to change your baby's nappy. And it was like a slice of history. And I thought, well, if I don't buy this, no one is going to buy it. It will go on the junk heap. So I rescued it.
Oh, that was beautiful. Of course, I'm a dog lover, so Harold was wonderful for me. But the idea that, like you said, you know, rescue books was a thought, and I was like, wow, who thinks of this? But this is an idea, and I think we should all be doing it.
Yes.
You know, kind of rescuing them. So obviously, when you write about the dog in the book, Harold, he's his persona by himself, and there's definitely a character. Are you a dog lover? How many dogs? Do you have dogs?
I have a dog. I have an adorable black Labrador, Hestia, who we absolutely love to bits. But I will say that Harold was not based on Hestia, because Hestia is a very obedient Labrador. And to be honest, I wanted a very naughty dog to write about. And I had met obviously a million dogs in my life, and I was sort of thinking, I want a dog, I want a rescue dog, and I didn't know. And then I went to stay with some friends in the country, and there was a dog there. It was a big house party, and I met a dog called Henry, a beagle, and I fell instantly in love. And Henry was really quite naughty. I mean, he was pinching the food, he was dodging around, he was stealing cushions off the sofa. He was the most charming, charismatic dog I have ever met. Everybody was charmed by him. And what I thought was hilarious is that my husband is a little bit like Matt in the book, in that he thinks that dogs should be well trained and you know, do what they're told, and that he's really, really into that. And he loved Henry. And again, this is what I mean about human nature. So on the one hand, he thinks dogs should be really well trained and obedient, and on the other hand, this naughty dog who kept stealing packets of food and running out to the garden and looking at you like to say, well, what are you going to do about it? My husband absolutely loved this dog. So
what made you love him?
I loved him. So I actually said to my friends, I'm sorry, he's got to go in a book. He's just too priceless. And sure he's gone into the book. And I tell you what, he is such a hit. I've been asked if I could write a book from his point of view.
Right. And that was the beauty of, okay, we shall not share that. But yes, that part of it was also fabulous. And maybe that's not a bad idea. I think I would look forward to Tales of Harold.
You would read our story. Well, I think that in terms of relationships, actually, attitude to dogs is quite a big issue, because if you have one attitude towards dogs and your partner has a different one, it's almost like a prototype for how will we raise our children. I think it can be actually a kind of, an area of tension.
On bed, not on bed. Oh my God, sneak on bed before he comes. In our house, it's the other way around. Like my earlier dog, who we lost, was a boy, and my husband was very clear about the fact that no dog on the bed, etc., etc. So when he would go on his work trip, and the dog would come on the bed, and he was so smart, he had figured it out that when my husband comes home, and if he is in town, he had to come on the bed. But now, once we lost him, and the other dog that we had is a girl who is so enamored by my husband and is like his little tail, and she's allowed to do everything. I said, you were so mean to my earlier boy. You didn't let him do any of these things. And this little girl has you fully wrapped around her little paw, and she's getting away with everything. But yes, you're absolutely right. There's a certain way that we all deal with it. And it's like, yes, it is parenting in that sense. So on parenting, when we come, you have, how do you work, write so much, and do your parenting? Because a lot of times parents find it very difficult when they're bringing up kids and to put in the kind of work that has to go in. How do you balance that?
I would say work in progress. You know, so far, so good. I mean, today, so far, so good. We'll see how things carry on. I mean, I think that being a writer, you're very lucky that you have flexibility. You can work from home. I don't have that thing of having to be present at the office, which I think can be a struggle.
You know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you know what happens? Suppose you have a thought going on and you want to write it down. And just at that point, there's an emergency. You know how it is with kids, there's always an emergency, and which needs to be dealt with right at that point. What happens? How do you slot it down? What do you do? Or do you forget it and you go, oh, I lost that thought? What happens in that zone?
You are absolutely right. Because when the idea comes, it's like a kind of little magic sparkle. You have to write it down. If it's a line of dialogue or a joke or a plot twist, I've got very good at whipping out my phone and dictating very quickly a summary of whatever it is, just to get it down somewhere. My children have learned, actually, that if I get a particular glazed look in my eye or don't seem to be quite with them, I'm probably thinking about the book that I'm on. And certainly the older ones are quite understanding. And if I just say, wait, hang on, it's almost like everybody has to freeze. And then she does this. Okay, relax, we can carry on. So people have got used to my little ways. And my husband is brilliant. And I can't sort of talk about parenting without bringing him into it, because, you know, we operate as a team. And if it weren't for that, I don't think I could do what I'm doing. You know, he'll step in because, as you say, writing is unpredictable. So I might say, do you know what? I just need to carry on writing this evening. I'm in the zone. I can finish this chapter if I carry on. And he'll just say, fine, you know, I'll do supper, I'll put the children to bed, you know, take all the time you need. And I, you know, that for me is just wonderful, because I don't feel bad about that. And then I'll make up the time with the children when I finished. So, you know, it does require flexibility. I think that's the thing.
That's wonderful. That support is amazing. So what was the inspiration for Love Your Life?
Do you know, it's funny that we've been talking about dogs. So I've always loved the expression, love me, love my dog. And like we were saying before, the kind of, there's a kind of, on the one hand, the practical compatibility of falling in love. And I've been really interested by the sort of the online dating and people listing, you know, who they are and who they want to meet. And it's a bit of a science. And then on the other side, you have that just instinct, just your eyes meet across a crowded room. And so I really thought there was a kind of comedy in this. So I thought, well, imagine if you met somebody and you have all the chemistry, but you don't know any of the details. So I set up this sort of bubble of a fictitious holiday where nobody shares their name, nobody shares their details of their lives. Everybody wears the same clothes, they have fake names, it's a writing retreat. You're not really allowed to share details of your life. And it was inspired actually by a yoga retreat that a friend of mine went on, which was completely silent. She
Oh.
went on this week holiday. Everybody wore the same pajamas, did the same yoga, didn't say a word. And I kept thinking, yes, but what if you fell in love with one of them? Wouldn't that be intriguing?
Yeah.
But then what? You're falling in love with somebody. You have no idea who they are, what their life is. And I could see enormous comedy. So I thought, well, I'll set up a hero and a heroine. They go on this writing retreat. They're not allowed to share any details of themselves. They fall in love.
And now what?
And then they get home. And now what? Get back to reality and actually start to learn the details. And it's a kind of cascade of discovery, which does not go well. I mean, I do like to write comedy.
The scene that you wrote when they land, when they come back to reality, as I would say, when they kind of, and they land, and at the airport, there are these two worlds that start colliding. And it's like, as a reader, I'm like, oh my God, these are such completely different worlds. And where's this going to go? I mean, you had the hook into me, and how I was like, I can't put this down till I know what happens to them. I'm
so glad you mentioned the airport scene, because I always had that as such a pivotal moment that, you've been in a holiday bubble, and to an extent, this even happens if you meet somebody on a normal holiday. You're in the bubble, you arrive, and then it's like the sort of screeching of the gears as you realize the reality. And my heroine, Ava, is a romanticist. So of course, when she had been spending time with this mystery man, she had been imagining what he was in real life and imagining his life. And let's say she got it completely wrong. And I think that we have all been guilty of that. Even when you're online dating, you read a few texts and you read a few emails and you extrapolate a version of this person. And it might be completely off the mark, and she is completely off the mark. And her two worlds, I mean, again, we don't want to give away the plot, but the two worlds are kind of at the airport, ready to meet the couple, and actually almost fighting with each other. So, good start.
Yeah, for me, I'm coming out of this beautiful, and the chemistry and the love that they're in, and here it is, and it's like, oh no, this is not happening. But that's like I said, the hook was in. It was a roller coaster from there. So absolutely thoroughly enjoyed the book. And I'm, like I said, so excited I got to read it before it kind of, comes out. That's always special. What after this? Because from whatever you say, I have understood one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there's no way that while you're writing this book, 5 other ideas have not popped in your head. They have. So
you've got me already.
Ask you what next. Out of those ideas, which one next is what I would look at, and how do you decide which one is next?
Well, yes, busted. I have already been planning another idea. I get a bit superstitious about sharing my plots before they're formed, so I won't give you any details, but it's a story about family and about love and a little bit about loss, but it's a comedy. And you're right, I have different ideas sort of always buzzing around my mind, and it's a bit like the instinct thing, like meeting the right person and just feeling a tug in your heart and thinking, I relate to this person. I feel like that with my story ideas. I have a few, and I kind of wait for one to give me that sizzle, that sort of, wow, yes, you.
Have you started an idea and you felt that, okay, this is the sizzle, I've got it, and like your character in Love Your Life, if by any chance you feel like, yes, I've got it all right, and what if that idea is not the idea? Do you in midway kind of give up and go to the other idea? What is it? How do you go about that?
Well, that's a good question, because I will tell you that when you're halfway through a book and it's ground to a halt and you're wondering how to proceed, there's always the other idea, like a kind of tantalizing beacon. And you think, well, maybe I should jettison this book. The other idea would be so much easier, but this, I've learned, is a mirage. The other idea is not easier. Much like relationships, books need work, and there's the kind of the initial exhilaration, and then there's the sort of the detail of it. I am somebody who plans a book before I begin. So I would never, I don't think, get to the stage of being in the middle of writing a book and jettison the whole thing. But I have worked quite hard on book ideas, try to actually flesh them out, try to work out, and I've thought, actually, no, not for me, and I have not proceeded with them. Or sometimes I've thought, you know what, this is half a book. I don't have the full picture yet. I need to wait and work out what my other theme is or what the subplot is. There isn't quite enough here. But fingers crossed, I have never actually had to abandon a book in the middle of writing it. I always work these things out at the planning stage. I do a lot of sitting in coffee shops.
What do you mean by you plan it out? Because, you know, in our book club, there are a lot of budding writers and we do a lot of masterclasses with the authors. So this is not like the masterclass, but, you know, when we're talking about it, I have to sneak in this question. What do you mean by you plan it out? Is there a process, and would you be comfortable sharing a bit of that process?
Of course. I love to talk about writing, and you know, if there's anybody out there who wants to write a book, I would just say enjoy. You know, find an idea that really fires you up, because it's going to be a bit of a slog. So you need to be as excited about the idea halfway through as you were at the beginning. And the way that I kind of keep the structure going is to really work out my plot, work out where are my turning points, work out the journeys of the characters, work out some surprises for the reader. Think about, I mean, for me, comedy is absolutely key. I want my readers to laugh. So I have to think, where am I going to be able to find comedy out of this situation? And for me, it's really important to have an ending. Now, it doesn't have to be the ending. You might be inspired as you're writing to change. And I am flexible when I write, but I couldn't just start and think, well, I'm sure it'll end somehow, you know. I couldn't do that. I have to think, you know, it starts off in equilibrium, everything gets turned on its head somehow, and then we find a form of resolution, not a saccharine, everything perfect, happy ending, but kind of resolution and growth and learning for everybody in the story. And how do we get there? And I put file cards up on my wall with plot points, and I move them around so that I can sort of see the story visually. And I find that a really useful way to just see it at a glance. So that's a really
whiteboard. You have your post-its on it, and you know the things.
Exactly. And then you can see if things are coming in the right order or not. Or you can think, well, you know, I need something else to happen here. Or why are they doing this? I mean, I think this is something that writers always have to be careful of. Make it realistic. Don't have somebody do something for no reason. They have to have a motive. And if it doesn't seem realistic, you need to set something up before, which makes this believable. So for me, getting the story straight in my head is really valid before I've even written a word of it.
Fantastic. But also, you know, it's not easy to write, like you said, the comedy or the fun part of it, and where you get the readers to laugh. It's actually, as an actor also, I find it's harder and more difficult to get laughs out of people than to get them to cry. Emotions are easy, you know, those kind of emotions, you can get them, you can hold them and get, but getting a laugh out of people, I always find the comedians or the stand-up comedy that people do far more difficult to do, because, you know, getting a laugh out of people is so much more difficult. So when you're writing it, do those parts come easier, or do the dramatic, the emotional parts come easier? What is easier for you?
I would say that for me, the comedy is in a sense, it's kind of easy in that I have a spurt of inspiration of like, what is the funny side of this? And you can't really study for that or work hard at that. It just comes to you. You know, I try and think, well, why would this be funny? What would make me laugh? And I kind of think. And if I am walking along the street and I imagine a funny scene and it makes me laugh out loud, then I know I'm onto something. But then the work begins, because for me, timing is just absolutely crucial to making a scene actually pop. And you can describe something funny and everyone goes, oh yes, that must have been funny. That's different from actually getting them to laugh.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For me, it's about, so I do work and work and work at the timing of the lines on the page. I read the scene and sometimes I'll read it and I think this should be funny. It's not as funny as it should be. We need another beat of time here. We need to delay this moment. we need to speed this up. This is a waste of space. So I work and work and work on just the comedy set pieces to try to make them as funny as possible, and to almost let my reader know when to laugh.
Working on it, on the comedy, when you're working on it so many times, how do you remain objective? You know, because if you're going to hear the same thing again and again, think about it again and again, how do you still remain objective about it and still know that, yes, this will get the laugh? That's
for me, it's all a matter of space. So you have to step away. I'll write the scene, I'll work on it as best I can, and then I'll leave it. Okay. And then a week later, if I come back to it, I can read it with much more fresh eyes.
And you can still laugh. And then if
well, hopefully.
Yeah,
that would be the test. My other test is giving it to my husband to read, because he has exactly the same sense of humor as me. And also, helpfully, he has a very loud laugh.
That's a good one.
No, seriously, this is a measure of, you know, whether a book is ready to go out, is I give it to him to read, and I sort of pace around outside, you know, as if I'm waiting for exam results. But the result I'm waiting for is to hear him laugh. And then I'm like, oh, okay, fine. Okay. And then I think, well, you know, I've made one person laugh, you know. Yeah. Maybe, if nobody else laughs, at least one person laughed.
Oh, but that's amazing. And I don't believe it will be just that one person, because obviously you've got us all to laugh quite a umpteen number of times on and on, again and again. It's amazing the consistency with which you make us laugh, you make us cry, you make us feel so many things, and the consistency with which you're kind of coming out with the work that you come out with. You started as Madeline Townsley, am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
that's
then
right.
On Sophie Kinsella. So what made you change your name? And you've written a bit under the other name, and then you started writing under this name. What was the reason that made you switch the name and move?
Yes, well, it's a funny thing that I've been Sophie Kinsella for so long that it sort of feels like me. And Sophie is my middle name, so it's not a million miles away. But I am really Madeline. And what happened was that I was writing a certain type of book, quite similar to what I do now, but slightly more serious, slightly more drama, lots of different characters, not quite so confessional. And then I had the idea for the Shopaholic book. And I instantly knew that it felt like a brand new voice. I wanted it to be irreverent and silly and very honest. And I didn't really want to have to go to my publishers and say, well, I'm changing direction. In fact, I didn't want to have to pitch this book at all, because I know it seems ridiculous now, but I thought, well, you know, does anyone want to read about shopping? Really? You know, what if they laugh at me? What if they say, are you nuts? What, a book about hiding your visa bill under the bed? You know, you need to go and see a doctor. So I thought, I won't try to explain it. I'll just write it. And then the appeal of taking a new name was also that I could give it to them anonymously, and they could just judge the work. And I'm a real believer in judge the writing, don't judge the person. So my publishers read it and they didn't know it was me. And so if they hadn't liked it, they could reject it, and that's fine. As it happened, they did like it. So, you know, it was a happy outcome, and it felt like a new beginning for me. It was like, I think I found comedy. And now I'm slightly addicted to comedy. So I've been Sophie ever since, because I'm unable now to write a book without jamming in some.
I love the way you said confessional, you know, so there was that bit, and that is so true, because that's how our lives are. We have the light part, we have the fun part, and everything is not about just being deep and serious, and, you know, life is irreverent and it is fun, and if you can laugh at it, it just makes so many hardships easier if you can laugh with them and at them and just have that laugh. And that's what you give us in your books, that being able to laugh at things and laugh with things. So thank you so much. And I just do hope that you continue to write many, many more books like this. And I'm so excited you've been here with us. Anything before we end that you would like to share about your new book, Love Your Life?
I really hope that it provides people with a bolt of joy and laughter and escapism, especially at this time. And I think for me, obviously, the world has been in a very strange time. And this, for me, it has been a kind of paradise of escapism to write. And I really hope that people will get lost just for a moment, just step outside of their lives and step into the chaotic, messy, hilarious journey of poor old Matt and Ava trying to find love, not very successfully, or, you know, perhaps successfully, let's not give away the story. And for a while, they'll get lost in those adventures and mishaps and just forget the world for a minute. And if I could help people laugh and smile, then I just feel so happy.
You know, just as you said, that one more thing that occurred to me was like, you said, these times that we live in. You did finish the book during the pandemic times. And so how did it change your way of working, the finishing of it, the editing? I've read the acknowledgements also. That shows that if you, I think you mentioned that you finished the book, the editing, final editing during the pandemic times. Did it change the way you work normally? How did you adapt to it?
Well, interestingly, when the pandemic first began, I wasn't really able to focus on the book at all. I was like everybody else, glued to the news. And in fact, I wrote a few little lockdown COVID diaries of Becky Bloomwood dealing with lockdown as a kind of catharsis.
Right.
But then I had to edit this book. And so I was like, right, I am just going to go with it. And it became a solace. It became a place for me to go. Part of the book is set in Italy, and Italy on the news was very different from Italy in the book. And it was like a sort of wish fulfillment. It was like going back into a world where you can go on a holiday, you can meet a stranger, you know, you can jump off rocks into the sea holding his hand. And so for me, it was almost a kind of therapy.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
And to find comedy as well at these times, I think we all just have to find whatever makes us feel good and just be kind to ourselves at the moment. And that was my way of being kind to myself, was letting myself just edit this book and be in this lovely place.
Amazing. So like you say, Sophie, we must, like your book says, that whatever it is, pandemic, whatever it is that we are going through, love your life. And the moment you love it, and you are, like you said, if you're kind to ourselves, I think we can go through a lot of things. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you so much for sharing so many things with us. And looking forward to this book, wishing you all the best for this book. Love your life.
Thank you so much. Honestly, this has been the best conversation ever. It's been such a joy. It's been lovely to chat. And thank you.
Looking forward to chatting with you much more often. And because you are, I'm sure you're going to come out with many more books. And so we shall have many more conversations, and I'm really looking forward to them. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm inspired. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Love you.
Bye. Bye. You too. Bye-bye.